the less said about the midweek defeat to Chelsea, the better. But there are some big talking points that we need to address. Glenn, do you want to kick off with Captain Fantastic? Henry got in touch to say that Stevens should be stripped of the captaincy. He's thrown the manager, the coaching staff and the players, some of whom were getting their big chance under the bus. And name me another Premier League captain who would act like he has done this season. Strong words.
Yeah, I mean, it's a scandalous thing to have done, bearing in mind the other incident with Romero from Spurs pulling Cucurella's hair. That's been in the news quite recently, hasn't it? And Mike Dean has said, "Oh, he should have sent him off." I think it's been highlighted enough that everyone's agreed it should have been a red card. So he was always going to get a red card. It was always going to get spotted because of VAR.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to achieve anything.
You got 35 cameras. It's ridiculous. Yeah. How can any player think that they're going to be able to do something like that on the sly and it not get picked up?
Yeah, but also, what does it achieve? So even if he pulled his hair and got away with it, what does it achieve? The ball wasn't in flight, so it's not like he's trying to distract him to get him out of the way to head the ball. It's just like, I'm going to be a dick and pull his hair. We're 3-1 down with 10 men with a weak inside. We're 3-1 down against one of the best teams in the country. I'm gonna do this. It's just an absolute brain fart, and that's the one thing that an experienced captain should be not doing. It's just absolutely insane that he thought that was a good idea to do that. Oh, and the other thing, of course, Cucurella is going to make a meal of it, and yes, it didn't hurt him. It wasn't like he'd been shot in the face. He went down, but you add all those things up, and Stevens might as well have punched him in the face and broken his nose. At least it'd been, because the net result would have been the same.
Yeah.
It was just such a pointless, stupid thing to do. And it was kind of, I sit at that end and I was looking at the corner taker, which is over to my right. And then you see Cucurella go down. You're not watching the incident, as Stevens hoped the 35 cameras weren't watching the incident. And as soon as I saw Cucurella gone down, I said to me, mate, I said, I bet this is a red card. Yeah. Just bet, because Stevens is there with the, what, me? I didn't do nothing. What's he doing? And it's just, because it was, and for some reason, because it was him, and because Cucurella was on the deck, I thought, I bet this is a red card. And least surprising thing. I mean, yes, he made a meal of it. He was always going to do that. But with all the publicity for the Romero hair pull, it was just the most inevitable thing ever. And I actually think the worst thing he did was throw the other remaining 10 players really under the bus. Horrible. You've got to play against Chelsea. I mean, it was Leicester vibes, wasn't it? I was pleased we'd scored already, because at half time I was thinking, evening game, raining, 10 men, team in blue. Here we go. We're going to lose. We're going to let in 9. Oh, we've already got 1. That's all right. And to be fair, I'm not going to criticise the other 10 at all. I mean, Lumley made mistakes in the first half, and we coughed up 2 goals. But the other 10, they had to do the job, and to be fair, they did pretty well until the idiot pitch invader. It was an evening for it, wasn't it? That seemed to break everyone's concentration, and we let in 2 goals straight after that.
Yeah.
Just on that though, did you just not find it really weird that all the stewards just sat around and watched, and all the police?
I think they're told not to engage.
He was on the pitch longer than Ryan Fraser was when he came on against Leicester. He was running around, he was shaking hands with people, wasn't he? And I'm just like, is anybody going to go and grab him?
Yeah, it was only Daz, the security guard, wasn't it? The player security who actually went on the pitch.
Yeah, very strange, very strange. Yeah. It was interesting.
What did you guys think of my statistic the following morning, the Jack Stevens stat?
Well, I was going to ask you about that, because I hadn't even thought about it. It's the percentage of games that he's missed, was it? Just remind us again, because it was...
because obviously he had the 5-match suspension, and because this is his second red card, he gets the free match for the violent conduct. It's not violent conduct, by the way, but that's just what it's classed as. It's stupid, is what it is. But he gets an additional 1 match for it being his second red, which means he's missed 9 games out of the 21 in all competitions this season, which by Christmas will be 43% of the club's matches he'll have been suspended for, the captain. And that's why I'm disappointed for him.
It reminds me of that season where Victor Wanyama got sent off 3 times. He was clearly going through the motions, genuinely didn't give a toss, and got sent off 3 times. I think he missed, was it 11 games, maybe 12? because he also then had a suspension for totting up of bookings as well, and it was just like, oh god, just an absolute waste of space at that point. And we're into the same territory. He is just an absolute liability and cannot be trusted.
Yeah, I've given Stevens his flowers in the past for what he's deserved, and for helping Russell Martin bring the dressing room back together last season, and for everything he does off the pitch and all this sort of thing. And I thought he played well in most of the games he's played in since he's come back into the team last season. But he's let himself down there, and he's let his teammates down. And Glenn's absolutely right; he's thrown all of his teammates under the bus, and Russell Martin talked about the fact that he suffered a bereavement, a family or close friend, and obviously the personal circumstances make things difficult, and you don't ever want to sort of personally abuse players. He had a funeral on the Thursday after the game, or on the Friday after the game, I think. So that's all tough, but ultimately, what we can see on the pitch is he's let everybody down. He's let himself down. He's let his manager down at the time where he really needed him, and he's let the club down, unfortunately. And he has to suffer the consequences of that. I'm sure Russell Martin's right, and that he'll be hurting about it, and that he'll feel terrible. But ultimately, it was a stupid thing to do.
There was a lad, as we were leaving the ground, Glenn, there was a guy who was chatting to his son, same as you've just said, really. He said, if you're going to get sent off, make sure you sent off for someone, like lamping someone in the face. He said, don't ever come home and tell me that you got sent off for pulling somebody's hair, because I would not be happy. And it's exactly the same thing.
I mean, I didn't answer a bit of the question that you asked previously about, should he be stripped to the captaincy? In my opinion, yes. Because, it's just shown that he can't be trusted, really. To keep a lid on, because I mean the sending off he got against Manchester United was ridiculous as well. Charging over and then doing a sort of thigh high tackle on Garnacho, was it? And
then made worse because of his language, wasn't it? On the way,
then made worse for swearing at the officials for rightly sending him off, and it just shows a guy who he's not as bad a player as people make out at the time, but that's not captain material. It just isn't. One of the main qualities has got to be to keep calm at key moments and try and sort problems out, not create them. And he's creating problems for himself, creating problems for the team, and that's that again that adds to the laughing stock thing. We've got him as captain, suspended for 43% of the game. What it was a grim evening, and if there's any justice in this world, I think he should be fined, and that goes to the Saints Foundation or whatever, and he should certainly lose the captaincy. And with Nathan Wood's performance yesterday, I think he should have gone down the pecking order to play centre back when he comes back.
Interested that Adam Armstrong has clearly remained vice captain despite early in the season, sort of Taylor and Flynn taking the armbands. So he obviously had the team out on Saturday. I would have put Flynn down as mine, but interesting.
There were a few players going back to Wednesday night, Steve. A few players coming out of the cold with a chance to impress. We mentioned they were kind of let down by their captain, but were there a few sort of standout performances for you? I mean, it's difficult, isn't it, when we've had that result? But I thought there were a couple that came in and maybe did all right.
I must admit, I thought from an attacking perspective, I thought we were really good at times.
Great goal, wasn't
it? And I mean, and bear in mind that comes what was that equaliser? 6-7 minutes, and we'd already missed basically an open goal from near identical circumstances. And I mean, it's obviously a thing that a sort of key part of our attacking armoury is that kind of run in behind the fullbacks, where one of our fullbacks then pulls the ball back for a non-rushing midfielder to score. I think Aribo and Cameron Archer both scored from more or less identical situations against Leicester. There's probably been a couple of others as well that I can't think of. But so that move has kind of served us really well. And it was just obviously frustrating that Aribo got his shot completely all over the place in the first minute, because if we take the lead against a side like Chelsea, then I mean you'd never quite know what mentality you're going to get from them, especially where they've made a few changes there. They've kind of thought that they can prioritise the Spurs game at the weekend by resting and rotating, and so they've got a few players coming in from the cold, as did we, and maybe you catch them cold.
We did.
But we just and we kind of did, really.
They were like statues. We were just playing around them for the first sort of 5 minutes.
We looked confident. We looked like we were kind of breaking through the lines. We were attacking them at pace in sort of wide areas. And yet the problem is always at the other end. We got ourselves back on level terms, and I mean that Lumley to Walker Peters pass. I mean it's down to both players for me. And I said this in the Liverpool game, I think, where McCarthy gave one to Fernandez because Fernandez had demanded it to feet, and Walker Peters was the same in this one. He wanted it to feet. But what you've got to be doing as a receiving player, not only are you kind of thinking what you're going to do with it once the ball comes to your feet, because you are going to only have one touch. You're not going to be able to control it. You're probably going to have to either lay it off or flick it around the corner to somebody, because that's kind of how those moves work in terms of breaking out and making sure that the opposition have got too many players the wrong side of the ball. But both of them, in both of those situations, they kind of only sort of jogged loosely towards the ball, whereas the opposition knew what was coming and was sprinting there and got there ahead of us. So that was the key difference with those ones, as opposed to what the intention is. And I've kind of got a bit of sympathy with the system in that regard, because there's a lot of teams that play this way. Ipswich are trying it, and like Muric has gifted another goal today. Apparently, I've not seen it, but apparently, so he's now gifted 4 goals just on his own. So he's out in front on a personal level. And yeah,
give Joe Lumley time.
Yeah, it's not just us that's doing this and making these sort of boneheaded mistakes. But ultimately, the players have got to kind of have a little bit more sort of positional awareness and kind of sense of where they are. I mean, Lumley's passing that ball out when he stood 25 yards from goal. So even if he does give it away, what's he going to do? He can't save it. So in that situation, you've got to look a little bit beyond that kind of first wave of potential recipients there. I mean, nobody's necessarily saying, right, you just got to pump it up into the sky and hope for the best. I mean, Wednesday night the weather was as awful as it was yesterday, so you weren't ever quite sure that that if you put it into the air, the ball's coming down where you intended it. But there's got to be a little bit more percentages involved, and just kind of looking at the mistakes that we have made, where it has been repeat mistakes. Once you've made a mistake in a specific way, you then do the work on the training ground immediately afterwards to know what the trigger is for when you're putting yourself in that sort of potential position, and you find a way to not do it. You come up with an alternative option, and that's where we're kind of falling over, because we are making the same mistake each time. And I think that's the thing that is kind of angering people, and the fact that, and it kind of drives that narrative of, Martin's stubborn, he's never going to change, even though he's obviously proven that he does change things on a sort of bit by bit basis, and has done in the year and a half he's been with us. But it does feed that narrative of, well, if you are still making the exact same mistake in games that are costing you goals, and look at our goal scoring record. It's hard enough to score goals as it is in order to win games. If you've got to score 3 to win a game any given week, we ain't winning.
Yeah.
That's the long and short of it, because we, other than actually on Wednesday night, where we did genuinely create enough chances to have scored 3 or 4 ourselves, it's you're just giving yourselves too much of a hill to climb. And part of it's the level, part of it is probably the system that needs a little bit of tweaking. I don't think it needs completely ripping up and throwing away like some people do, because at the end of the day, these players were brought in under the knowledge that this was the system we were going to be playing. there's probably quite a lot of players in that team who do genuinely want to play that system. And at the end of the day, it's probably a frustration for them that it's not working. But there's got to be some sort of reckoning here. At some point, you've got to find a way of getting around these sort of just concentration issues. And it is about concentration. If you can just avoid that one individual mistake per game, then all of a sudden we will start to pick up points. But problem is now you're looking at a team that's potentially lower in confidence. They're not making the right decisions when they get into good areas. Also, there's a little bit of luck there where the ball's falling to the wrong people. Like Flynn Downs had one yesterday where you would imagine if the ball had fallen to Fernandez, he possibly even hits that first time from the edge of the area rather than trying to beat the defender once and then not having enough time to get the shot away. So yeah, confidence is now a problem, and it's not getting any easier with this. Obviously, the run of Christmas games coming up.
We were promised some records might get broken before the end of the season. I don't know if you saw the new XG record that Chelsea set, the best or the biggest by an away team in a Premier League match of 5.29, recorded on Wednesday night. We need to do a player of the week as well. Anything else on Chelsea? Anything else you want to chuck in before we move on?
Well, I mean, just on Chelsea, they were playing with half a team, obviously. Just to sort of...
They'd rested 7, hadn't they, I think?
Yeah, well, I actually meant Saints. Chelsea were as well. But I mean, their B team is still worth 4 times the amount Southampton club is. But yeah, I mean, we did have 5 or 6 players out. And that did obviously play a part in it.
The Flash score list had 11 players listed as unavailable.
Yeah.
But that counts people like Larios and Ross Stewart who are dead. So. I mean, I thought Joe Aribo had a tremendous game, so we obviously got dropped for the game yesterday, so we could play an extra defender. So yeah, I thought he had a really good game against Chelsea. I just thought he stood up. Having said that, he was part of the problem. Our defence came under a lot of pressure because neither Aribo or Ryan Fraser were particularly good at picking up Chelsea midfielders. So there was always an out ball. So Chelsea always managed to get it into the midfield and find loads of space through there. And when you've got players like Enzo and Cole Palmer, Madueke, they got those players on the ball far too easily, and that was partly why the roof fell in. But Joe Lumley. I mean, we praised him because he had a decent game against Brighton, but that's what you get. He made some decent saves against Chelsea, but the bomb scare every corner that came into our box, he didn't have a clue, not a clue what he was doing. And the first goal is as bad as it gets, getting beaten at the near post. With a header at the near post like that is terrible. And we covered the mistake for the second goal. I just think that decision making there. I acknowledge Walker Peters' sort of like mistake in calling for the ball, but if you're the goalkeeper, you've got to say, "No, I'm not giving you that." Yeah, I'm outside my penalty area. You're 10 yards away. You've got 2 players up your backside. This isn't going to end well.
He did it again yesterday, didn't it? In a much more dangerous position.
There is clearly a problem, though, in that these players, no matter what they say and no matter what Russell Martin says about it, they are scared to annoy Russell Martin, in my opinion. They are scared to go long and be chastised for it. And it's they're being asked to play away, which they probably deep down don't believe they can, and they're nervous and they're making mistakes.
But they're given carte blanche to do it, because Russell Martin says, "I'm never going to blame anybody for trying to play out," but it's suicide ball. We talk about the risk reward thing. The chances of that coming off and us getting anything from it is about the same as something coming from Jack Stevens pulling someone's hair. It's just it's just not a good thing to be doing. And I think in both those cases we talked about, the McCarthy one with Fernandez and this one, it's just say no, not giving you that. Get away. I mean, the idea is, I heard Aaron Ramsdale talking about this earlier on in the season, is that you draw players towards you and that brings on the chip ball over the top of the press into the midfield. Now, I think there's an issue that, our movement ahead of the ball is not great. We play a lot of our stuff when we pass the ball. We refer to it as sideways and backwards. We've always got players available further back, but up front and sort of like ahead of the ball in midfield, we're not great at sort of progressing the ball. Occasionally we do it, but not often. And I do think sometimes that players look up and they see no one, or they see players that are offside, and that's why we try some of the things that we do, and why we seem to allow the opposition to get back into shape so often. But yeah, I mean, Ramsdale was talking about, you bring players on, it's a bit scary, but you then chip it out right or out left or whatever, and you progress up the pitch that way. But obviously everyone's got to be on the same page.
Yeah.
And I mean, I forgive some of the stuff in the Chelsea game, obviously, because it was a scratch team basically, with a lot of players who deep down are not good enough to play against a team like Chelsea and be effective. But they stuck to their guns really well. I thought all game there was no giving up like we had in the infamous Leicester game. But although the Man United 9-0, where there was mitigating circumstances with that one. But Stevens' red card must be up there with the Alex Jankovic one from that game as the most stupid red card we've ever had. I mean, that's a poll, isn't it? Stick that out there. What's the most stupid red card we've ever had? I think that's.
Well, I think at least Jankovic was a young lad, in a trying circumstance, rather than the team's leader. That's worse.
Yeah, good point.
I was just annoyed because I predicted that we lose 4-1. So when that fifth goal went, I was mightily annoyed.
On the subject of the goals, that Cole Palmer one. Am I the only one that thought that Ryan Manning got booted from behind in the build up to that?
Exactly the same as the Wolves goal with Semedo.
Yeah.
Stepped across him, got kicked, but of course it doesn't get given. Not that it mattered for the result, but yeah, I agree.
Can we cobble together some players for Player of the Week? Dibbling won again last week. I think it was his 6th time he's won this season. I'm tempted to say the away fans that travelled to Aston Villa. Any names taking both the games this week? I guess maybe Nathan Wood. Any advance on that?
Yeah, Wood, Fernandes maybe.
Joe Aribo.
I thought Fernandes had a poor game at Villa, to be fair. Aribo.
We'll stick Joe Aribo on.
I'm trying to think who else actually played well on that.
Walker Peters, I think. Walker Peters has played reasonably well in both the two games, maybe.
Thought Manning was good Wednesday, but...
Yeah, Manning was good Wednesday.
Yeah, I don't know. I missed the game yesterday, so not...
Yeah, I think Aribo and Nathan Wood probably the two top
names
candidates.
Maybe chuck Ryan Manning in as well, and Walker Peters. There's the 4 names to go forward.